AFL Southeast has partnered with Sports Performance Tracking, also known as SPT, and they're here to present and offer a new, unique product. Many of the clubs already know SPT through their work in the elite area and also in community sports. Many clubs have already engaged SPT through the use of their GPS units, and they are definitely a leader in high performance sport. Tonight you'll hear about a new product called Virtual Sports Scientist, which hopes to engage and keep players connected through this COVID pandemic. AFL Southeast has been really impressed with the professionalism and enthusiasm of SPT Sport to continue to engage in the community space. And they're offering modern techniques and products that will keep your players and club and take them to the next level. The importance of tonight, we aim to take the load off coaches, whose primary responsibility for keeping the players engaged during the pandemic. It was essential for us to have the coaches understand the program that we're about to roll out and the offering that is coming from SPT. The communication of the program will come out in the coming days, and it was really important for the coaches to understand what that is. Now, we will distribute this information right across our network, which includes the AFL Southeast Top Age competition, which is from under 15s all the way through to under 18s girls. The Southeast Women's Competition, the MPNFL, Morning Peninsula Nepean Football League, and also our AFL Southeast and SUA umpiring fraternity. At the conclusion of the presentation, there will be an opportunity for questions and also to provide feedback. Now, you can do that either verbally by using the little icon to lift up your hand, or you can do that through the chat function, and one of the boys from SPT will take care of you. Just to let you all know that this session is being recorded and will be made available publicly. So we just ask that obviously you act appropriately on that basis. I'd like to now formally introduce the SPT team who are joining us tonight, and I'd like to introduce the program coordinator, Ben Sharp, and also the Australian sales executive, Chris Hogle. And I now hand over to the CEO of SPT, William Strange, to go through the program and introduce his team in more detail. Thanks, Will.
Excellent. Thanks, Sean. Appreciate everyone for jumping on. I know at this late hour, especially when there is footy every day of the week for the next 20 weeks, that, you know, it's taking up your time. And for those that are watching it later on, thanks for jumping on. As Sean just introduced the three people that have joined me today, and I've seen one other, John Parkin, jump on. Ben Sharp is our resident sports scientist. His background is pretty well known in the area, but it's head of strength and conditioning at Oakley Chargers and a leader in the GPS analysis field. Chris Hogle, which I do know some of you may know. So he manages our sales in Australia from a GPS perspective. I know that he's signed up teams in this region: Rosebud, Sorrento, Dramana, Mornington, Red Hill, Mount Eliza, Seaford, and about 12 others. So we do have good representation down here. And just briefly before I start about what this product is, I do want to let you know about a little bit more about SPT and why we're doing this. So about 6 years ago, we started with the ambition to help improve aspiring sporting teams and players and increase their ability to understand their training and match their output. Now, this was via GPS, because at that point in time, GPS in the elite section was significant. But once you got to that aspiring level, like the teams that we're talking to today, it wasn't so prevalent. Now, thanks to us, it's become a lot more prevalent. Over the past 6 years, we've been working with global programs, including Division I college football, soccer programs, national soccer programs, and thousands of local and aspiring teams in Australia. I think we've almost got all VFL clubs, including Sandringham and Casey Demons, which is in obviously the southeast area. And we will work with many other programs that are striving for modern day improvements. Obviously, the discussion isn't around GPS, and the discussion around GPS and tracking for your programs is for another time. But the reason we're here today is to talk about our virtual sports science program, which we are launching in partnership with AFL Southeast. So thanks to Sean, David and the team for backing this program. Using our extensive contacts and market knowledge, being a leader in the high performance programs field, but delivering to aspiring teams and players, we're continuing along that theme. We know how tough clubs have been doing it and are doing it at the moment. One of the things I've been working with my local footy club here in Victoria is around engagement and education of players and coaches during a pretty tough year. With the new restrictions and lack of sport, we've seen many people really wonder what they're doing. Clubs have started to organise their programs and connect with players, but a lot of the time it hasn't been great news when speaking to them. We really want to change that. We've developed a platform and a program, which Ben will take you through shortly, that will allow all the clubs and players to engage with high performance and essentially lift the bar for season 2021. The last thing I want and the last thing we want is that players and stakeholders lose interest in footy, lose interest in their health, and ultimately disconnect from the footy community. So this is really trying to connect everyone again. I'll talk firsthand here about the product. And I played representative footy at the Sandy Dragons at an early age. I was in pretty high performing programs, but one of the key things I missed, and the reason why this program is existing, is that in the early stage, my development and my career playing amateur football, education component was quite poor. And that's not because people aren't trying, but the basic understanding and the fundamentals of increasing performance, they just weren't there. The fundamentals of recovery and nutrition, for example, these are things that if I had greater knowledge and I had greater understanding of, it would only improve my performance and only improve my connection to the sport. Once Ben's taken you through this program today and the program highlights, please have a think about how this could benefit your footy club. Ultimately, that's what we're trying to do, benefit your footy club, your community, and even your coaches. We want to take this opportunity of missing footy in 2020 to come back better than we left it. And ultimately, this program is something that we think can get your players and your staff connected and increase that bar of education. I'll throw over now to Ben. He's got a couple of slides here to give you a quick rundown on the program. And we're more than happy to take questions throughout or at the end if you've got anything. Please send them through in the chat function on the right and we can come back and discuss that. So whilst the reasons are pretty clear, we really want to communicate, we want to educate, we want to contact and connect with all the players in the AFL Southeast region. We really need your help, getting them involved. And ultimately, the benefit that you're going to see is these players will come back in 2021 in better shape, still engaged, and ultimately allows you to increase your performance next year, because that's what sport is about, getting better, being better. So I'll chuck over to Ben, who's got the slide in front of him.
Thanks, Will. And thanks everyone else for taking time out of your nights to jump on, and Sean and Dave and everyone down at the AFLSE team as well for backing us in. So as Will touched on, our aims here is to educate, it's to engage, and it's to provide your athletes with a platform in which they can take the information we give them, take the programming we give them, and move forward with their sporting endeavours, and ensuring that we take a little bit of that load off you guys as well. Will's covered off the main reasons, and what I want to do now is dive a little bit deeper into the specifics of what we're going to provide, how we're going to provide it, and how the athletes will actually access the program as well. So there'll be fortnightly modules. So you can see the main modules listed up on the screen there. And in amongst those fortnightly modules, athletes will be provided with their own specific training programs. And each of the main education pieces will be embedded within that. So they'll have the training program that will take them step by step through each piece, which is an education form in on itself. And then they'll have main lecture content in which some of it will be provided live. And obviously it'll all be pre-recorded, and everything will then sit in an archive in what we'll call a training hub, which is for the athlete, it's just an app, a custom built app on their phone, which they have access to. So part of that, and part of what they get access to, is a community and engagement element within the training app. So it's not only there to provide them with sets and reps, it's not only there to provide them with lecture content, which they can obviously view at their own time, but there's ways in which they can interact with their teammates. There are open forums in which they can ask questions, and I can pose questions, and our content producers can pose questions and provide essentially instant feedback to queries they might have. It might have nothing to do with what we've posted up, but it might have something to do with another element of athletic performance or personal development in that sporting space that they want to engage with. We have access to that. There's a whole bunch of content that will be archived that they'll be able to access, that will be set in relatively easy terms to find. You'll have your nutrition folder, you'll have your recovery folder, and all of the content that we provide, you'll easily be able to access it. And as coaches, if you guys want to jump in and engage with it in that way, and if there are parts of it that you want to take out, you want to get better at learning how to prescribe conditioning within training or structure up training sessions, all of that stuff will also be in there for you guys to access, as well as being able to engage with your athletes within the platform as well. Specifically around how the programming and content will be delivered to the athletes, essentially each athlete will have their own training calendar. Within that, they'll have their training sessions, they'll have their education content, they'll have structured recovery, and each part of it, so each little dot that you see here has a 30-second education video attached to it as well. So you don't only get your main lecture content embedded within the program, but if you want to know how to perform a push-up correctly, you'll actually learn how to do that as well. So each part of it is specifically designed to achieve the goals which we're after, which is facilitating the development physically of athletes, and upskilling is the word. You know, you look out there, they're going to learn how to do these things. They're going to learn the why behind them. And then, you know, having been in the pathway, the talent pathway for now going on 6 years, specifically actually in the AFLSE region, that each player will arrive at this point in their journey at different speeds. Some of them may never have done weights in their life. Some of them may have been doing them for 10 years. And everyone goes on their own journey to say, okay, this is for me. This is how I'm going to do this. This is what my week looks like. This is what works for me. This is what doesn't. And the program set up in this way will go a long way in ensuring that each athlete gets to that point. Now, it might take some athletes a day. It might take some athletes 6 weeks. And that's all part of it. That's very normal. And that's all part of the development process. And I'm sure you guys see it as well at each and every one of your clubs. It may take certain athletes longer to grasp concepts, but when it does, and when that penny drops, that's where the real development starts to happen. And that's where their buy-in matches up with the buy-in that you have. And that's where everyone aligns. With the education content specifically, we're engaging a whole lot of partners and presenters within our networks, and who have worked with SPT, who have worked with Will, who have worked with myself, who have worked through the AFLSE pathway. And it's not just us putting content and saying, here's what's good. We're actually engaging professionals and that you can see listed up here that are specialists in their areas. And again, I'll touch on it one more time. I don't want to repeat what I've already said, but some of this will be delivered live. Some of it will be pre-recorded, but all of it will be accessible at any point in time for the athletes to use at their leisure. I'll pass back over to Will now, and he'll quickly cover off what the program looks like from a cost perspective.
Yeah, thanks, Ben. Certainly, you know, we're very cognizant of the time of you know, people's abilities to be doing extra things versus, you know, what they want to spend in a pretty tough time financially for a lot of people. Ultimately, you know, what we see is the benefit of the program. The benefit of the program for the clubs, for the players, for the coaches, for everyone. And that's essentially why we're on the call today, is to speak with you about, you know, bringing your team on. So looking after your players, looking after your team and your club by giving them ultimately a product that can help them. And we've worked out a pricing position with AFL Southeast to really help engage that, not put too much of a barrier to entry. And we're offering two options there. So there's a $29.99 per month billed over the 3 months of the course, or a slight saving if you pay that all up front, which I know Some people like a deal, so some people would choose that. But ultimately, we did plan on having this at around $30 a month. There's a fair bit of work that's gone into it. We're tapping on the shoulders of and getting some pretty influential people in the sports science space from AFL land that have backgrounds in multitudes of sports. So, netball, hockey. I know a lot of these, specifically with AFL Southeast, we're tailoring this conversation to be about AFL. But the program itself, I mean, the science of sport, the science of high performance, the science of achievement is the same, whether it's soccer, hockey, rugby, football. It's all about, the principles of strength and conditioning, the principles of nutrition, not necessarily the specifics for Aussie rules, but they all do have their specificity for the sport. So when we go to the individual players, and we know that some coaches will sign up as well, they will have the opportunity to sign up via a subscription or purchase the bundle outright, which does have a bit of a saving to it. So that gives you a bit of an understanding around the price point. Also an understanding certainly around the reason for why we're doing this, the reason why we think this will be value to you, and also the reason why we think it would be valuable to your players. And ultimately, really, really keen to get your feedback, get your thoughts and any questions or concerns that you may have around this program rolling out in a couple of weeks' time.
Thanks, Will. I guess it will open up the room to any questions that any of the coaches or attendees may have around the program, specifically around the delivery and what a participant may look like engaging in. So is there any questions? Feel free to unmute yourself or no. So we do have a question in the chat. Is the training skill specific or age specific?
Ben, probably best to answer that. I can certainly answer it, but Ben, you'll be best placed.
So regarding the age specificity of the programs, when we have a participant sign up, we capture their date of birth and we segment that off depending on whether they're 15s, 16s, 18s or open age. But theoretically, like particularly with amateur athletes and junior athletes, the needs are relatively similar. Obviously, we're not going to throw a heavy barbell on a 15-year-old straight away. But yes, to answer the question, it is age specific. But in saying that, there's not a significant change from age to age, and that's just fundamentally what strength and conditioning and skill acquisition is.
And it's also probably helps understanding the level of education we're providing. There is both the baseline that we expect most people will already know or should know, as well as that next level which we're educating. So we know that we'll have 12-year-olds, 13-year-olds, 14-year-olds want to engage in this, and there will be benefits to them. Should you be a 25-year-old or 30-odd-year-old like myself wanting to keep playing or stay involved, there's serious benefits there as well, because some of the recovery methods, the nutrition, they're going to help. So it does go across ages, but there's certainly going to be benefits for
Ben, just in relation to female athletes, obviously through netball and female football, we have female participation. So the programs can be tailored to suit either gender.
Most definitely. Particularly, the only time we're going to look to differ training to make it gender specific is when we're looking at injury risk profiles. So we know, and having worked myself with the Netball Vic high performance team for a while, we bias injury prevention in the knees, and we bias injury preventions in the lower limbs compared to male athletes, where we know we may see a high prevalence of soft tissue injuries. That's about as far as we go for gender specific. And again, that is basic strength programming, basic conditioning program. And so the answer again is yes, there will be slight differences for gender specific training, but as a whole, we don't need to make it vastly different because the needs of the sport are relatively the same for each female and male.
Cool. Now, is there any other questions from across the room?
There's a question there from Shane in regards to the benefits for a coach. Certainly, one of the things when we're building this is how beneficial would this be to different stakeholders. And my personal opinion is if you're a coach, you should be understanding the basic concepts of high performance anyway. And that's very difficult, right? You've got your skill development that you've got to work with the players. You've got, things all the way to rotations and these philosophies that are opinions essentially. When it comes to, how should your team be recovering, the benefit to an assistant coach or a senior coach, men's, women's, juniors, is that you have this knowledge. And when you're talking, if you have the luxury of having a strength and conditioning coach or the fittest person at the club kind of gets given that role, that when they're talking to you, it's not in gibberish or it's not broad, but you can actually ask, right, how is our recovery going as a group? How is our, potential soft tissue injury, risk management in the early part of the season going? And you can have that conversation with them rather than kind of just saying, how's our high performance going? You can delve a little bit deeper and understand the nuances of it. So there's certainly, in my opinion, there's benefits to the coaches to understand as much as there is to the players themselves that are, going to be changing their own behaviours, but a coach, tries to change club behaviours and culture behaviours.
Cool. There's no further questions. So the process from here will be that there'll be a broad communication out to all participants across the region, and they'll be encouraged, obviously, to sign up. It's an opt-in. There's no compulsion for anyone to be involved. But the purpose of tonight was to ensure that our coaches across the region were aware and conscious of the program offerings and what it does and what benefits it may have to your individual participants and players, and also in the umpiring sphere as well. So in that communication, there will be some contacts for the team at SPT. So you feel free to reach out directly to the team. And if you've got any other further questions around that and how SPT can potentially assist your clubs with with their services outside of this particular program. So if there's no further questions, thank you very much for joining us tonight. Is there
another question that came through on the chat?
Yeah.
John, just around information being stored and shared. It's stored on the platform. You don't have the ability to download content from the platform, if that makes sense. So yeah, it's stored on the platform specifically, and we don't give users the option to download it.
And as the program develops and we get closer to the end, there will be conversations with all the individuals around how they want to. I know that we've already had a few people speak about pursuing different lines, whether it's specifically nutrition or getting some of the key sort of presenters to have further discussions. We will look at how we can keep people in the system so they can continue to offer it and move it on. But at this point in time, yeah, it will be stored in the system and kept there.
Terrific. Thanks, Steve from Manaliza, and we'll make sure that one of the SPT team will come and follow you up. Okay, thank you very much, everyone, for joining us, and enjoy the rest of the evening, and stay safe during these real challenging times. Thanks, guys.